There are quite a lot of similarities, more than you can imagine, actually. When I started traveling, I call this the camel diplomacy, meaning that I took my leg of camel, the camel prosciutto that we made in restaurants, and I traveled with it through Italy, through the restaurants. The thing is that many of our food concepts translate finally into the Italian mindset. We should not forget that historically and still many regions of Italy are still regions where people eat horse, Piedmont being one of them. This is not an acquired taste for Italians as well as Kazakhs. That was there all along. This is where the food is sometimes, it's not similar, it's different, but there are some similarities.
Welcome to Asia Wine Market Almaty Special Edition with me, your host, Roza. In this special series, we're exploring the growing wine culture of Kazakhstan, with Almaty at the heart of it all. Each episode will meet with Italian wine professionals, importers, somms, and producers who are shaping the future of wine in Central Asia. Whether you're a winery looking to expand into new markets or a local expert curious about the market dynamics, you are in the right place. Hello and welcome to Asia Wine Market Almaty Special Edition 2.0. This is the first interview for the series this year, and for the other interviews of the series, please check the album on our website. As we all know, wine is inevitably related to food culture and dining habits, and Kazakhstan cuisine is heavily associated with meat. That is why I'm very excited for today's conversation. Our today's guest, Svetlana Khaninaeva, is the leading voice in Central Asian gastronomy, the founder of Kazmyaso, the only restaurant in Central Asia with its own Black Angus herd. Trained internationally in Copenhagen, New York, and Tel Aviv, Svetlana works with local meats like horse, camel, and beef. She is also a Tatler columnist, TEDx speaker, and one of the country's top chefs. So welcome, Svetlana. We are very, very excited and happy to have you here today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Before we dive into our main topics for today, tell us how your journey started and what brought you to the butchery.
All right, so I started to work in the kitchens at a ripe age of 28. People usually start earlier, but for me, well, that was the beginning of my journey. No one cooked in my family, so you could say that it's a kind of a hypercompensation, I guess. That's where I started, and I progressed through the ranks in the kitchen quite fast, becoming a sous chef in one of the top restaurants in Moscow in just like 5 months. From there, my journey took me through lots of countries. I worked in 9 countries so far.
Wow.
I worked and staged in Michelin-starred restaurants around the world, including New York, Copenhagen, as you said. At one time, I understood that, look, I want to be a meat chef, and being a meat chef, it means understanding the product. I mean, the meat doesn't grow on a supermarket shelf. It was an animal, a live animal that we killed to eat it. Here, understanding a product is quite a hard journey. To begin understanding meat, you have to understand where it comes from, meaning that you have to understand the whole chain. So what I did, dropped the Michelin-starred shiny kitchens and went to work in Tel Aviv's Carmel market, which is one of the biggest markets in Israel. And you can imagine how it looks like, just like your average Middle Eastern market, meaning you have rats, you have birds, you have all kinds of flies, stuff, you name it, we have it. I worked there in a butchery that worked closely with the farmers. We worked with beef mostly. We received quarters from the farmers we know. Well, we always knew what type of cow that was, the age, how it was fed. And we butchered the carcasses. We sold that in the butchery. And also the butchery had its own restaurant called M25 because it was located 25 meters from the butchery itself. So that was like a journey into that full, chain of production. I worked there for like 3-4 years, I think. I worked in some more butcheries along the way, but I always understood that I'm going to return to the kitchen. I just need to, touch the product a bit. So that's how it happened. Along the way, I took part in various reality shows. Reality TV, as you know, is, food reality TV, as you know, is quite popular with people. And in Russia, in Israel, that's the case. I'm a semi-finalist in Israel's Game of Chefs, which is one of the most popular reality TV there. As I said, I staged and worked in various Michelin-starred restaurants, in restaurants that were mentioned in Michelin guides. And my journey took me to Kazakhstan. And the first time I arrived here was 9 years ago, I think.
Okay, that's very exciting. And why Kazakhstan?
As I have several passports, I can work pretty much anywhere I like. But Kazakhstan is unique. It's a vast and untapped destination that I strongly believe in. So the first time I arrived in Kazakhstan was 9 years ago, as I said. I fell in love with people first. Then I fell in love with Almaty. Then I fell in love with the product, because Kazakhstan is the ninth largest country by land mass in the world, meaning that we have so many pastures, so many cows and livestock, etc. People here, farmers here, grow the product that is distinct, different. And if you add the nomad culture to it, well, you have a cocktail that's really, really interesting. On the other hand, it's not really widely known in the world as a gastronomic destination, as opposed to, say, European destinations or the United States, where pretty much I don't think there is something untapped in the United States. It's famous for its wines, for its food, etc., etc., but that's it. And here I see an opportunity to show that to the world.
And we're really, really happy and excited to have you and to bring your expertise to Kazakhstan, to be honest, and to show that our gastronomy can actually compete with the other countries' gastronomies, which are more widely known in the world, I think.
Trust me, we can. We can, and I'm absolutely sure about that.
So, for today, our key learning objectives and what we are going to learn from Svetlana is first, understand Kazakh meat culture and dining habits. Second, we're going to identify some practical pairing strategies between Italian wines and Central Asian dishes. And third, we're going to learn how to localize Italian wine storytelling to resonate with Kazakh consumers through culture, hospitality, and food. So, first of all, before we start talking about some of the projects you are working on, for someone unfamiliar with Kazakhstan, how would you describe the DNA of Kazakh cuisine today?
I love that this DNA is pretty much like a salad. Wild mix, all the cultures that we have here. Again, it's a huge country. So you have different cultures. You have, apart from the Kazakh cuisine per se, which I'm going to talk about very soon, we have Koryo-Saram people that have a type of Korean cuisine which is very distinct from what they have in Seoul, for example, because they were deported here and they had to cook with the product they had on hand using Korean techniques. And trust me, if you're ever in Kazakhstan, I urge you to try that. That is very tasty. And we have Uyghurs and Dungans and all the other influences. Obviously, a lot of ex-Soviet influences too, because Kazakhstan once was a part of the Soviets. The thing is that if you add the fact that Almaty, where we are sitting today, has been a part of the Silk Road, that gives you a very interesting representation of pretty much everything you have in Central Asia in one spot. The Kazakh cuisine per se obviously is meat-centric, and that is another reason why I love the country. Not being Kazakh myself, I still adore the way that Kazakhs eat meat and the way that meat pretty much defined the entire year of a Kazakh family would revolve around meat. So the family would move to Zhailao, the summer pasture with their herds. Then, when it's autumn and it's time to kill some animals to make a living during winter, to sustain yourself during winter, people would have some kind of celebrations, and they still do in the villages, they still do. Then people would preserve meat meat to keep it through the winter, and then you would have a special ritual of eating the old meat, the leftovers from winter, to celebrate spring. And as I said, this is still practiced in villages. So this is amazing. I can't really remember any other culture that is so meat centric. But pretty much as we say, we love to eat meat and dough. Give us meat and dough every day, we're going to eat it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and what about some trends? Is something changing in the cuisine? What kind of trends are you seeing right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I arrived here first, the restaurant industry was so different from what we see now. I'm so happy that in the past years, like in 2, 3 years, the industry has grown, and we have some really healthy competition around here, which was not the case, say, 5 years ago. So for us chefs, that means we have to move, and we have to move fast. We have to learn more. We have to go around, see places, taste, eat, and bring some more techniques and something new to our customers, our guests. Thing is that if, like, say, 5 years ago, you probably heard of author-made cuisine, this is not the case anymore, and I'm so happy about it because that gave way to defining your cuisine in a completely different way. So the city now sees the wake of the bistronomy, which utilizes to some point, not to the point I'm happy about, but to some point they still try to utilize local products. They should do that more, if you ask me. The thing is that fine dining stays as a concept that's not for everyone, really. That's like more of, I don't know, an occasional celebration or stuff. And mostly people choose the more affordable venues to spend the evening, to go somewhere with the friends. And the thing is that Kazakhstan, unfortunately, is quite volatile still in terms of investment and stuff. And whenever something happens, whenever, say, the dollar selling rate goes up, people stop going to the restaurants. That's one of the first things people stop doing. They stop going to the restaurants. That means that our competition is really fierce. And as I said, I'm so happy about it. Another trend that I really don't like, and I think I can say that, is that everyone tries to sprinkle some curd, which is a type of ricotta salata, type of a hard cheese, on food, and say it's neo-nomadic. I mean, what's that? What the hell is neo-nomadic cuisine? Can someone define it for me? Because I don't understand that. The thing is that I think that if you're willing to call yourself like a restaurant that sells neo-nomadic food, you have to define it for yourself first, and probably you have to dive a bit deeper in the product. But then again, it's me, and that's my way of looking at things, and I'm certain that some of the chefs would definitely disagree with me here and say that, look, if you want to sell Kazakh cuisine to the world, it has to be adapted. I say no. Diving deep in the product brought some chefs around the world accolades, and that's exactly what we should do here.
And I completely agree with you. Well, right now we have this kind of nationalism and the love
Yeah,
for our culture in a way. That is why you can see, like, for example, with the clothes, not only food, they just put the ornament, like Kazakh ornament, and say, like, this is like ethnic clothes.
exactly. And it could be any Kazakh ornament without
Yeah.
understanding where it was originally. I mean, they could put an ornament that is supposed to be on the floor or on the wall into the clothing, but you can't really do that. And this is like, like your staple neo-nomadic culture, which
Yeah.
I'm strongly against. If you want to show your culture to the world, well, maybe do it right.
Yeah, again, it's just taking care of the cover itself, but not of the content, what you're offering with your project. I understand
Exactly.
that. And I completely agree with you on that point, to be honest. Okay, now I'm very excited to ask you about projects that you developed. So, one of the well known projects that you developed in Kazakhstan is Kazmyaso. Kazmyaso, it means like meat from Kazakhstan for those who are curious. What made this concept unique in Kazakhstan? Because it's pretty unique concept. And who were your typical guests? at that venue?
That's a great question. I love it. So, when I arrived to Kazakhstan and I understood that I do want to settle here, I do want to work here, I obviously wanted to build a steakhouse. I mean, every meat chef dreams of a steakhouse. So, I dreamt of a steakhouse too. I mean, I still do. The thing is that each and every steakhouse here in Almaty used to sell the same type of meat from the same suppliers. I mean, you just go to a big supplier and you buy meat from there and you call yourself a meat restaurant. Not cool with me. No, I mean, not cool. So, what I understood that, look, we're a meat country. We have 8 million cows. We have had at the time, now the number is unfortunately lower, but we have 6 to 8 million cows, meaning that for every 3 persons here in Kazakhstan, for every 3 people that live in Kazakhstan, one cow is grazing around somewhere. So why should we buy like American meat, I don't know, Russian meat, sell it in our steakhouses and call ourselves a steakhouse? This is stupid. Well, maybe. I mean, look, there are different concepts. It's just not my concept. As I say, look, I love the concept of truffles and foie gras, just not here. Leave it to where it belongs, and maybe let's take a look at our product, which is really superior. And the fact is that in Kazakhstan, there is this thing that I love to call the Dimash effect. So, Dimash Kudaibergen is a famous singer. He's a world famous singer, but when he became famous in Kazakhstan, right after he became famous in the
Yeah.
world. So, what we tend to do here is think of anything Kazakh as a bit inferior to something that's produced in the world. And again, that is so not right, because this is a complex that we should not have. As for the meat, I can testify that this is not the case. And we'll talk about it later today, obviously. So I had to build a steakhouse and I wanted to build it with local produce, local food. So I traveled for like 2 years, I think. I met pretty much anyone who knows about meat. We have this kind of a meat associations here in Kazakhstan. So I met pretty much all of the directors of those associations. I met farmers, and I didn't find anyone who was ready to work with a restaurant to produce stable products, because a restaurant depends on stability. If you rely on 1, 2, 3 suppliers, you have to have stability. The product has to be very stable. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I didn't find the company that was willing to work with that. And then Kazmyaso found me. So Kazmyaso is a company that operates here in Kazakhstan for, I think, 13 years. And they were one of the first to bring Black Angus cows and bulls to the country. Black Angus is a breed. It's a very versatile breed, one of, I think, the most populous in the world. And turns out the Anguses love Kazakh mountains. And here in the southern part of the country, we have the Tian Shan Mountains, meaning that there are lots of pastures that are virtually identical to the alpine pasture. So if you are used to, say, picturing the pastures of Piedmont, well, here you are. We have the same here. So Kazmyaso is a producer that pretty much controls the entire chain. So they grow the feed for the cows, they grow the cows, they have their own feedlots, slaughterhouse, butchery, a dry aging chamber, and it's all very technological. So this is one of the most technological advanced producers of livestock here in Kazakhstan. And they found me. We understood that we do share those values, and that's how we built the restaurant. Well, saying that that's a restaurant is, well, probably going a bit over, because we didn't have money. I mean, it's not a big company. Its main business is growing cows and selling meat. So we didn't have money for the restaurant proper, but what we had money for is 34 meters of space in a food hall. And this is how we built Kazmyaso restaurant, which had 6 sittings, plus the communal space of the food hall where our guests could sit, but they could sit with us if they wanted. A full open kitchen, including me. There were 16 people working in that restaurant. What we did, we based ourselves on local product only. If it's beef, it's our beef. If it's meat, it has to come from Kazakhstan. We knew personally the person who was making our cheeses, and so on and so forth. If it's local, I'm going to buy it. If it comes from, say, Russia, China, or something, I prefer not to. If, say, it's Uzbek, like Uzbek tomatoes, which are in season, I would definitely buy it because that defines the region as well. But if it's something like mass market made Chinese stuff, no, that's not going to happen. So what we did, we basically built a steakhouse in those 34 meters of enclosed space, and it worked because I was really afraid that this is not going to work, that the Dimash effect is not going to work because we're no Dimash and we are unknown to the world. But people came, and they came in droves, and they stayed, and this is how for 2.5 years the restaurant was probably one of the most well-known restaurants in the country. Maybe I would stretch it, but I would say that that was the most famous meat restaurant in Almaty.
I think when I moved to Almaty in 2022, that was the first meat place that I heard of.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Again, some of my friends who visited Kazakhstan, whenever we go to eat somewhere, the place might look like very fine dining, very polished, very fancy, and also like steaks, for example. They write like on the
Yeah.
menu, Australian raised beef or like the beef from this country. And then some of my friends, they were actually asking, I thought you're like a meat country. Does it mean that the quality of your products is less than the Australian beef, for example? Because this fancy restaurant chooses to use the Australian beef, kind of putting it higher on the quality level above Kazakhstan's meat. So thank you for this concept. And also because
Thanks.
your restaurant, your project became so popular, I think it also made our local chefs think about local products in a different way also.
I would hope so. Trust me, that's music to my ears. And one more thing to add about that restaurant. When we grew up, we understood that, yeah, we built a solid product, stable product for our guests. We started moving around, and my idea of bringing bringing Kazakh meat to the world really started working. So first thing that we did, we invited chefs over just to eat. Whenever we knew that there is a person that's associated with world's 50 best rating, or a journalist or a blogger or a chef, Michelin-starred chef is in the city, we would just pull them by their hand and say, look, can you please come? We'll give you a steak, you give us an honest review, we'll sit together, please. One of the first Michelin-starred chefs was Italian, by the way, that visited
Mhm.
us. I think he had 2 Michelin stars at the moment. He was amazing, and he gave us a raving review. We were so happy about that. And another thing we did, obviously, we started traveling with our meat, with all our charcuterie that we make from different types of animals that are produced here in Kazakhstan, including camel. I'm happy to say that Italians loved it, actually, because for the second year in a row, thanks to Shift Project, which is a project to unite bartenders of the world, but they also work with us. We do try to promote Kazakh culture, so they work with us too. And thanks to the Shift Project, we were able to give Italians our meats to try in some of Italy's Michelin-starred restaurants.
That's absolutely amazing. And I think this is a very, very good segue to the second part of our conversation, where we want to connect Italian food and wine culture with Kazakhstan food and wine culture. But before that, just a slight remark. You called that Dimash effect. I think you should give credit to yourself. It should be called Svetlana's effect, to be honest. You did a lot.
Thank you so much. No, I have another effect that bothers me a lot, but the thing is that I always think of myself as, as someone inferior to, world's best chefs and stuff. And because I started to work in the kitchens at 28, it's always been with me. People usually do it from like age 15, 17. I guess somewhere inside, I still feel like I don't belong, like I'm not a real chef. Obviously, it's not true, but I think it's going to stay with me for some time.
I feel the same all the time in everything. I feel the same in wine.
Oh,
I also started getting interested in wine like close to my 30s. So I also have this feeling and can relate to everything that you're saying. Okay, so right now about Italy, what's some of the things that might seem similar between the cultures and also different in your opinion?
there are quite a lot of similarities, more than you can imagine, actually. When I started traveling, I call this the camel diplomacy, meaning that I took my leg of camel, the camel prosciutto that we made in restaurants, and I traveled with it through Italy, through the restaurants. The thing is that many of our food concepts translate finally into the Italian mindset. I don't know, when you push corn in an Italian's face and say, look, this is just like ricotta salata. Taste it, and people say, oh, yeah, that looks like ricotta salata. We can get behind that. You know, in Kazakhstan, sometimes it's considered like a tourist attraction to eat horse, but we should not forget that historically and still many regions of Italy are still regions where people eat horse, Piedmont being one of them. This is not an acquired taste for Italians as well as Kazakhs. That was there all along. And pretty much, you know, the concept of eating meat and eating bread, dough, pasta, whatever is made from flour, is not new to Italians. I would say that mostly you would see that in Tuscany, in Piedmont, but this is where the food is sometimes, it's not similar, it's different, but there are some similarities, especially in Piedmont, by the way. Piedmont and Tuscany are probably two of the regions that are closer to us in the food mindset. You're going to get like a huge tray of meat and dough and those huge trays with beshbarmak, our national treasure. Whenever you arrive at someone's home and they're expecting you, you would be given a plate of boursak, which is a type of fried dough. And by the way, there is a type of fried dough in Parma called torta fritta, and it's very similar to ours. Ours is a bit softer, but otherwise it's pretty much the same, talking about similarities. But I would say the biggest difference is in the way we eat. So we put a big plate on the table and we share.
So, given all those similarities and also some of the differences, let's go to wine now because we're called Italian Wine Podcast. And I
Right.
just need your chef's lens and restaurant lens.
So I'll be happy to share.
I would love to ask you to give us some practical tips on pairing Kazakh cuisine or Central Asian cuisine with Italian wines. How would you pair different Italian wine styles with horse meat or lamb or meat cuts or even camel? Which pairings would work
Oh,
best?
that's absolutely my favorite question because, as I said, there is this notion that red meat equals big red wine, and I would so much not do that with Kazakh meat because all meat is different, and Kazakh meat is very different depending on cut, on fat, on how you cook it, and whether it's boiled, grilled, smoked, dry aged, not dry aged, served with dal and broth like beshbarmak. So usually I would say that I would think in three elements, being fat, iron content, because iron content is really different in different types of meats, and it depends on if the meat was dry aged or wet aged or wasn't aged at all. Trust me, it can alter your perception of wine really greatly. And the last element would be smoke. So for horse meat, I would definitely go with Nebbiolo, Barbaresco, Barolo. Here I'm playing favorites because those are one of my favorites too. Who said something about big red with piece of meat? Yeah, I know. But if it's like a more serious dish, so we know that Nebbiolo comes in different shapes and sizes. And if it's something big, yeah, I would go with Nebbiolo, Barbaresco, Barolo. It has tannin, it has acidity, and acidity is very important in pairing with our meats because acidity is something that can cut on iron nicely. This gives you like a proper perception of both the dish that you're tasting and the wine that you're tasting. And I think it's bloody elegant, meaning that, it's earthy, it's a bit floral, and it possesses all the qualities you want when you pair it with something big like horse ribeye, say dry aged horse ribeye. Also, what I love about Barolo specifically, that it requires long aging. We're talking about the bigger Barolos, and the style is built not just on alcohol, like many producers in different countries do. I can name Spain for one. It's built on acidity and it's built on extraction, and this works very nicely with a fatty, proper dry aged steak. Barbera works nicely with fat, absolutely. Like you would go with Barbera and Kaze because it's quite acidic. The tannin is lower. Kazi is one of my favorite things to pair with something because, as you know, we serve it both as a part of the main dish and you can serve kazi for starters. So that's like sometimes it's tricky. Also, we mentioned Etna Rosso, Nerello Mascalese. Obviously, I would go with that all the way with horse. Unfortunately, it's underrepresented here in Kazakhstan. I would love to see more of it because that's one of my favorite styles because of that volcanic minerality of red fruits. It's medium in tannins. It's quite acidic. So this is probably one style that can handle iron, smoke, spice without, crushing the meat. For lamb, the answer is quite simple. I would go Mediterranean. I would go with Chianti Classico. I would probably go with Brunello. Montepulciano from the more known styles. So Sangiovese based wines like Chianti Classico, like Brunello, they're quite acidic again, and the acidity cuts through lamb fats. They're still quite tannic, and that works great whenever you roast or grill meats. That's cool. And Chianti, well, it's especially food friendly, really. It's one of the food friendliest wine I know. For the lesser known varieties, I would go with safe. I wanted to braise like a big part of the lamb, a big piece of the lamb, maybe a lamb shoulder, maybe ribs. I would go with Alianico, probably Taurasi, so it's tannic, dark, serious, and it can handle that kind of flavor well. Canonau from Sardinia is another unexpected probably answer because it's soft, it's warm, it's quite sunny, so I can imagine eating some lamb shashlik with Canonau, really. I think that would make a great pairing. For beef, obviously, you want structure, so again, you would go with Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo works really nicely with all the umami, with all the blue cheeses that we have, like mushroom notes. Nebbiolo handles that very well. Again, Brunello, Di Montalcino, Chianti Classico, I would go with the Reserva, Gran Selezione, probably something like that, because it's quite savory, still has that acidity, works nicely. For the camel, I would go probably again, I would go with Etna Rosso because camel, unlike lamb, it's sweet. So it's not fatty. Yeah, it's very sweet. So you expect something more, I don't know, more like antelope, like saiga. No, it's like sweet wheat and it's very tender. So you would go with something lighter. The bigger wine would kill it. So you wouldn't do that. As for the strange pairings, I would probably, we are talking about kaze and serving it as a starter. You know what would work really nice with it? A really dry lambrusco. So never go with a sweet one, but if you take like nice dry lambrusco, I think that would pair exceptionally well with kaze. That's a kind of unexpected wine that would handle it. For those who are unfamiliar with what kaze is basically one of the centers of our meat culture. This was the way of preserving the meat, a very common way of taking the meat with you. Basically, you would take a horse intestine, you would stuff it with pieces of meat and fat. On the pieces of meat and fat, you would obviously put salt, garlic, and black pepper. And then you would hang it for several days for it to ferment. And then you would cook it for several hours for it to become tender. And you're left with kind of a sausage, which is a hybrid of several techniques that are also familiar to you, the Italians. But the thing is, it's quite pungent. And this is why I was thinking about some unconventional pairing. I think that's something to try. I think that might work. It really depends on the Lambrusco, but it might work.
Thank you again for all the recommendations. It was really practical. Thank you so much. So, to finalize our today's conversation, I know that you're developing a new project, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm very excited to try whenever you're open. Please tell us about your current project, the one you're working on right now.
It's a steakhouse, obviously. I always said I'm going to build a proper steakhouse, and I'm hoping I'm on my way to it. It's here in Almaty. It's in the mountains, but it's really in the cities. So, for those unfamiliar with Almaty, we're a city where you can travel for like half an hour from your apartment and you'll be surrounded by beautiful mountains. So, we're lucky to live at the very base of the mountains, the Tian Shan Mountains. And the mountains are quite high, so that makes for a spectacular view, and pretty much you can see the mountains from anywhere in Almaty. So the restaurant is going to be in the mountains, but it's in the city. If you're staying in Almaty, you'll probably stay in the center. It's like 10 to 15 minutes travel by car, which is not much by Almatian standards. That's like nothing. It's based in a hotel. So there is a very nice hotel called Kazakh Garden where you can rent a beautiful house. There are 12 of them, I think, and they're going to expand to 50 because they're really in high demand. And trust me, it's a world-class accommodation. I'm so happy for us to be there because they get raving reviews from the guests. It's all very tasteful and nice, and it's quiet, and you're really in the city, but you're away from the city. I suggest you to come whenever you guys are in Almaty, whoever's listening to our podcast. And the steakhouse has to be about smoke, about fire, and what I wanted to build, as I said, I wanted to build a local steakhouse, and I think this is like the place because there are 9 hectares of land on which the hotel is based. So there are grounds for expansion, and we can do so much there. Next year, we're going to have our own farm. We're going to have vegetables there, also lamps. As I speak, the guys are putting the fence for the lamps so that there will be a place to graze right next to the restaurant. So we're going to have a farm, we're going to plant vegetables, obviously, and we're going to utilize whatever we have in the mountains because there are so many wild plants growing there. Look, we can do so much without using truffles and foie gras. Trust me, there is a lot of product that we're going to still gets our guests to be familiar with that, but I think they should, and I think it's going to be great. For the meat, we obviously are going to use the best from the local producers. I'm not going to use any foreign produced meats. We're going to work with all the bigger beef companies here in Kazakhstan, with those who are like Kazmyaso, like Kazbeef, like Terra, more technologically advanced. We're going to work with smaller farmers for lamb, for camel, and for horse. And we're going to have our fermentation lab because there is so much to ferment, like leftovers from beef can be fermented into garum. And we used to buy it. There was a guy who made it for us for the smaller restaurant, but now we can do our own. And obviously, we're going to keep and ferment all kinds of things that grow there because sometime during the Soviets, this was the place where the apple gardens were. So Almaty is home to the common predecessor of all the apples in the world. So whenever you're eating an apple, remember that its predecessor comes from here. And basically, there are a lot of apple trees. Some of them died along with the Soviets, but we're also going to use that. We're going to put that to good use. We're going to smoke on that apple. We're going to make plates from that apple and serve, say, the locally farmed fish to our guests on those plates. So there are a lot of plans, really. And we hope to welcome the first guests on our summer terrace this summer. And by December this year, I think we hope to open it. I think it's going to be fabulous.
Well, I'm very excited for that. Everything comes together perfectly well. The location, the chef, the ingredients, the space.
The team, because everyone who you knew and loved from Kazmyaso are coming with us on this project. So I couldn't be more happy about that.
I'm personally excited for the opening, and
Yeah.
I think that that might be the place where I'm gonna bring all of my foreign friends.
Cool, because we're going to do, and don't get me wrong, I said that I hate the neo-nomadic culture, so I don't want to bring that to the restaurants. But what I want to bring is that, look, as a meat restaurant, we should have the bishbarmak, but it should be a really great bishbarmak. We should have Monty, but it should be, the Monty should be amazing. You should remember that as something that you remember from your childhood. So we're going to have a dedicated person for that, and probably I'm going to invite some grandmas to show us the way it's been done in their families for centuries. So while we're going to have some national elements, I want the product to speak for it, not the useless ornaments on the wall, if you know what I'm saying.
Got it. Again, congratulations on the new project.
Thank you.
As I said, I'm very excited to be the guest there. So, to finalize the interview, we usually ask our guests 3 rapid fire questions, and your answers can be short, concise. If it's
All right.
longer, that's okay too. So, one perfect pairing, Italian wine plus Kazakh dish.
I would say take a barbaresco, serve it with dry aged horse meat.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Question number 2, your favorite wine spot in Almaty?
2 of them, actually. I would say that Agora is a spot that many people love. It's very nice to sit there, enjoy your wine, and enjoying the surroundings. The people strolling in the very center of the city, admiring mountains, because I think you can also see the mountains from there. And another wine bar that I do love is bistro named Them. It's on a by street, also not far from the center. Recently, a very serious team of sommeliers moved there, so they have a really, really serious wine selection, and they have a very small speakeasy wine bar, because usually speakeasy is a cocktail bar. Well, they have a wine speakeasy, and they serve an amazing amount of wines by the glass. I think they use Coravin. It's amazing. It's like dozens and dozens of varieties, and you can try something really nice if you're willing to splurge on it. But also, there are types that are cheaper and you can enjoy a lot. I do recommend the guys.
Okay, thank you. And the last one Kazakh ingredient Italians should discover.
I would say kaze, because if Italians can build a civilization around prosciutto, they can understand why our walls sometimes revolves around horse sausage. And also, fun fact about the Kazakhs, we smuggle kaze into every country we go to. Italia being no exception, I'm sorry. I did that too.
That's actually true. I can relate to that. I tried to do that to Beijing when I was studying there. So
Did
I
you
was
succeed?
confiscated of 5 kilograms of kazakh.
No.
Yeah, I was devastated. All right, it's time to finish our interview, but I could talk to you even more, even for another hour.
We should do that on Vinitaly over a glass of wine.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you so much again. Have a good luck with your new projects. I'm very excited for that.
Thank you so much. I was excited to be on that podcast today, and thanks to anyone who's been listening.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks for joining us on Asia Wine Market. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your fellow wine professionals wherever you get your pots. To stay updated on upcoming wine events, market insights, visit ItalianWinePodcast.com. Catch you in the next episode. And until then, cheers from Asia.